Rain slammed against the windows as thunder rolled across the sky. Justin tossed the screwdriver aside, rubbing oil-stained fingers across his temple. He had spent the last 3 hours trying to fix the solar inverter and hadn't made progress. Outside, lightning carved jagged veins through the darkness. The storm was getting worse. Then something lit the horizon. It wasn't lightning. This was different, sharp, fast, and silent. A streak of electric violet cut through the sky and vanished behind the trees lining his backyard. A second later, the earth beneath his boots trembled faintly. Not an explosion, more like something heavy hitting the ground, muffled by distance, and rain-soaked dirt. Justin grabbed his flashlight, slipped into a jacket, and stepped outside. The backyard was a soft blend of overgrowth and structure, shaped lovingly by his late grandfather. Raised garden beds, a rusted wheelbarrow, stone, pathways still holding heat from the day, but tonight it was soaked and silent. No frogs. No wind. He moved toward the back fence where the light had vanished. The beam from his flashlight wavered across drenched bushes, then froze. Something was crouched behind the tomato patch. Justin's pulse kicked hard against his ribs. At first, it looked like a person, bare skin, trembling shoulders, but then it shifted. The shape leaned into the shadows, and the light caught her face. Not human, almost, but not quite. Her skin shimmered with a soft indigo glow, rain streaking down. Her cheekbones like tears. Hair clung to her back in silver waves. Her eyes were open wide, luminous, reflecting the beam like twin stars, and fixed on him. "Please," she whispered, her voice delicate but urgent. "Don't call them." He took a step back. She rose slowly, arms raised in peace, breathing. "Uneven. I crashed," she said, as if that explained anything. "I didn't mean to land here." Justin kept the light steady, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Her form was lean, graceful, draped in what looked like torn metallic fabric clinging to her body like liquid. A fine cut ran down her leg, glowing faintly. Blood, or whatever passed for it, oozed lavender. "You're not from here," he said, more to himself than her. "No," she replied, and then added, "But I'm not here to hurt you." He hesitated. This could be a trap, some twisted government experiment gone rogue, a hallucination, anything. But she looked scared, not monstrous, not threatening, just alone, cold, in pain. Against all logic, he held out a hand. "Can you walk?" She blinked, as if stunned by the question, then nodded. Carefully, she limped forward. When her fingers touched his, he flinched. Her skin was warm but buzzing, like touching low-voltage current wrapped in silk. They moved back toward the house in silence, her bare feet pressing into the mud with barely a sound. Once inside, Justin grabbed a towel and handed it over without a word. She accepted it gratefully, wrapping it around her shoulders. He lit the fireplace. She crouched near the warmth, visibly trembling, her otherworldly glow casting flickers across the wooden walls. Raindrops sizzled on the flames as they rolled off her skin. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Kalina," she said softly, almost too softly. "I'm Justin." They stared at each other across the flickering room. "I wasn't supposed to come here," she whispered. "The ship malfunctioned. I was aiming for deep forest, no witnesses." "Not a great navigator, are you?" She smiled faintly. "Apparently not." He studied her again, eyes lingering on the faint pulse of light that moved under her skin, like bioluminescent veins. Nothing about this made sense. But she wasn't attacking him, she wasn't armed, and somehow she was sitting on his rug. Like she'd collapsed more from exhaustion than fear. "Are they chasing you?" he asked. "Yes." "Who are they?" She looked up and something shifted behind her eyes. "People who don't think I should exist." Thunder boomed outside. Justin looked toward the windows, then back at her. This night had gone from quiet and routine to something out of a fever dream. But she was real. She was breathing. She had a name. And something in him, deep and instinctive, told him to listen before judging. "I should call someone," he said aloud. Kalina's face tensed. She didn't beg, didn't plead, just watched him, silent. He sighed. "But I'm not going to." Color returned to her cheeks. "Why?" "Because you asked me not to," he said simply. "And because whatever you are, you don't look like a monster." For the first time, she relaxed. Just a little. Justin stood up. "Let's figure out what to do next. But first, you need rest." Kalina closed her eyes and nodded. And just like that, the storm outside felt a little less loud. Morning filtered through the blinds in thin streaks, warming the wood-paneled walls of the living room. Justin stood in the kitchen, staring at the mug in his hands, coffee long gone cold. He hadn't slept. The image of Kalina's glowing skin, trembling in front of the fire, kept looping in his mind like a song stuck on repeat. He glanced toward the couch. She hadn't moved much, curled beneath the blanket he'd given her, silver strands fanned across the pillow like starlight. Her chest rose and fell in a soft rhythm, peaceful despite everything. The glow beneath her skin had dimmed slightly, no longer pulsing. Justin approached quietly, unsure whether to wake her or let her be. Before he could decide, her eyes fluttered. Open, amethyst irises locked onto him with startling clarity. "I didn't mean to stay," she murmured. "You needed rest." "Still do." She sat up, gripping the edge of the blanket, cautious. "Your kindness, it confuses me." Justin raised an eyebrow. "Helping someone who crash lands half dead into my garden is confusing?" "For my kind, yes." He pulled a chair from the dining table and sat across from her. "Then explain. Start from the beginning." Kalina looked away for a moment, lips pressed tight, as if debating whether truth would ruin everything. Finally, she exhaled slowly. "I'm not a visitor," she said. "I wasn't born on some distant star and sent here to explore. I'm a project," Justin blinked. "Like, genetically engineered?" "Constructed," she replied. "Designed in a lab. My creators wanted the perfect negotiator, someone beautiful, adaptive, emotionally tuned to any species. I was their prototype." His grip tightened around the chair. "Human-made?" Kalina nodded. "Zyros Dynamics. They run off-world diplomatic infrastructure, at least officially. In reality, they build tools, living ones. You're saying you were manufactured like tech?" "Biological interface unit," she said flatly. "Model K01 programmed for first contact facilitation, emotional decoding, and species-specific behavior replication." Justin shook his head slowly. "But you feel real." "I wasn't supposed to." Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "They didn't expect me to want anything, not freedom, not autonomy, definitely not a name. But I grew curious. I started dreaming. They called it malfunctioning." Justin leaned forward, elbows on knees. "So you ran." "I escaped during a transport operation," she said. "They were transferring me between installations, Earth and a lunar site. I overloaded the containment protocols, rerouted emergency power, stole a shuttle. I didn't aim for your home specifically, just somewhere quiet, somewhere off-grid." He rubbed his jaw, processing every word. "That's why you were terrified of drones. They're always watching. My biosignature is hard to scrub. Once they lock onto it," she trailed off, glancing toward the window. A bird chirped outside, but her eyes didn't relax. "They'll erase me, and anyone who helps." Justin stood, walked toward the garden-facing windows, and pulled back the curtain. The tomatoes were fine, soil undisturbed, no sign of recent landing or pursuit. Yet, he turned back. "They think you're just property?" To them, I'm hardware with skin. Silence lingered between them, heavy and raw. Justin broke it with a quiet question. Why tomatoes? She looked puzzled. Last night. You said you crashed by mistake, but you landed right next to the garden. Kalina hesitated, then smiled, faintly. Your plants are different. They carry intention. Life cultivated with affection resonates in my senses. It's like they hum. Yours sang. Justin chuckled under his breath. That's probably the sweetest compliment my vegetables have ever received. She tilted her head. I wasn't trying to flatter. I know. Her smile faded again. You should turn me in. You still can. He met her gaze. And what? Watch you disappear? Let them wipe you like a corrupted file? I don't want you in danger. Too late, he said softly. They'll come eventually. I'd rather be ready. Kalina stared at him, something unspoken in her expression. Respect, surprise, maybe even gratitude. Justin looked around the room, then nodded to himself. There's a storm shelter under the back porch. Reinforced, hidden. If they come, we use it. Her voice trembled. Why are you doing this? Because you chose a name, he answered. That means you chose to be more than what they made you. She said nothing. But when he turned to fetch tools, she whispered, barely loud enough for him to hear, Thank you, Justin. He didn't answer. But behind him the old house seemed to breathe quieter, as if it too had accepted the alien sitting in its living room. The hum came first, soft, barely noticeable. A distant electronic pulse, like a failing streetlight flickering in intervals. Justin stood in the hallway, screwdriver in hand, frozen mid-repair as the sound grew louder. It was coming from the woods behind the garden. Not wind, not wildlife. Something artificial. Kalina walked in, eyes narrowed, her posture tense. She didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. They're here, she said. Justin dropped the screwdriver into the toolbox and moved to the window. Trees swayed, undisturbed. But above the horizon, something floated, nearly invisible in daylight, cloaked in matte gray metal and whirring propulsion. Oval, with a glowing red band circling its base. Looks like a drone, he muttered. Recon model, Kalina confirmed. It scans for residual biosignatures, movement patterns, heat trails. They know you came this way. They suspect. They're narrowing it down. Justin turned from the glass. Into the shelter, now. They moved fast through the kitchen and out the back. Rain from the earlier storm had left the ground slick, but Kalina was sure-footed, light as breath on water. Justin pulled open the trapdoor beneath the porch and gestured her inside. No light down there, he warned. I'm not afraid of dark places. He hesitated. I'll bring food, blankets, just in case. She climbed down the narrow ladder, without another word. Back inside, Justin tossed essentials into a duffel. Cans, a flashlight, first aid supplies, water bottles. His hands moved automatically, muscle memory guiding him, but his thoughts spun. This was real. There were machines in his sky, people hunting Kalina with equipment designed to erase her existence, and he had already passed the point of no return. He zipped the bag. Movement caught his eye. Across the street, behind the Hendersons' hydrangea bush. A black van. Parked. No headlights. His stomach clenched. He bolted for the back door, grabbed the duffel, and jumped down into the shelter, ceiling, the hatch behind him. The small space smelled of earth and metal. Concrete walls held decades of moisture. Kalina sat cross-legged on the blanket he'd left, fingers tracing patterns in the dirt floor. Van just showed up, he said quietly. No plates. They're moving faster than I hoped. Justin sat beside her, back against the wall. So, what now? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she closed her eyes, fingertips brushing the cold concrete, her breath shallow. I can sense them. There are 3 inside, all synthetic. He blinked. Wait, they're not human? Biomachines. Their brains are coded. They don't feel. They calculate. Their only task is retrieval. Or elimination, he added. Her silence confirmed it. Minutes passed. Justin watched her, noting how still she became. Even her breathing synced with the faint humming from above, like she was reading vibrations through the ground. They're not coming in yet, she finally said, scanning. They don't know I'm below. Will they? If they switch to thermal detection, yes. Justin rubbed his forehead. We can't hide forever. No, but we can delay. She reached into the folds of her torn garment and withdrew a small crystalline disc, no larger than a coin, pulsing gently with blue light. What is that? Signal scrambler, partial cloaking field. Why didn't you use it earlier? It's limited. 5 minutes of coverage. 1 use. He exhaled slowly. We'll have to make that count. Above them, the drone whined louder, like it was irritated. Then silence. Justin held his breath. They're repositioning, Kalina whispered. Trying to triangulate. He stood, paced twice, then stopped. My workshop's grounded, lined with lead mesh. Think it could block scans? Her gaze lifted. Possibly. Then we move. Fast. They emerged under fading daylight. Justin led the way, moving through the back path behind the tool shed, avoiding the main yard. Kalina moved like wind in tall grass, silent, nearly invisible in the deepening dusk. Once inside the workshop, Justin slammed the door and clicked the deadbolt. Shelves of equipment, cables, unfinished prototypes cluttered the space. The air smelled of metal shavings and oil. Kalina stepped to the center and closed her eyes again. This is better. He pulled down blackout shades, turned off every device with a signal, and set up a crude listening post using an old frequency detector. The scanner pinged once, then flatlined. They lost you, he said. For now. He looked at her. Why? Are they willing to go this far? You said you were just a diplomatic model. Kalina hesitated. Her voice, when it came, was bitter. I found something. Before I escaped. A secondary project, weaponizing empathy, replicating our connection systems but without consciousness. He frowned. You mean, they want copies of me, but obedient, disposable, no thought, no soul. Justin sat down hard. That's not diplomacy, that's slavery, she nodded, and they don't want anyone knowing. He stared at her, the workshop suddenly feeling too small for the storm that now surrounded them. You don't have to fight this alone, he said quietly. Her eyes widened just slightly. You'd help me? I already am. For the first time. Kalina didn't look afraid. Night draped the sky in velvet black, scattered with faint stars struggling through cloud cover. Inside the workshop, time had stopped feeling linear. Justin sat against the far wall, knees bent, watching Kalina move among his tools like she belonged there. She handled objects with reverence, turning over a copper coil, tracing wires with quiet curiosity, tilting her head when sparks danced across metal. She didn't speak often, but her silence wasn't cold. It carried weight, like someone learning to breathe in unfamiliar air. Are you always this calm under pressure? Justin asked, trying to break the stillness. Kalina didn't look up. Calm is not certainty. I'm evaluating probabilities. And? The BIM odds of survival improve with distance. We remain too close to their last detection zone. He leaned forward. So we leave. Eventually. But escaping blindly is reckless. I need to transmit what I know. Evidence of their weaponization project? She nodded. The data I extracted is encoded in neural fragments. I memorized parts, embedded others in a shard, hidden before launch. You hit a physical device? Yes. Buried it during impact. South end of the property, beneath the willow tree. Justin blinked. You crashed, ran, and still had the sense to hide a memory shard? Survival required planning. Panic is inefficient. He stood. Then let's get it. Kalina shook her head. Too dangerous now. Patrols are sweeping nearby grids. They'll return at sunrise. We retrieve it before then. Justin walked toward the window. Do you miss it? What? Wherever you came from before all this. She hesitated. There's no before. I was activated on the orbital station. My first memory was of instruction. No family, no friends. There was another unit, Lyra. She malfunctioned, resisted programming. They dismantled her. His throat tightened. You watched them do that? I felt it. Kalina sat down, fingers curling around her knees. They said she was broken, but she wasn't. She was curious. Justin crossed the floor and sat beside her. You said they're building copies of you. Without empathy? She gave a slow nod. My neural framework was meant to bridge species emotionally. Translate not just words but feeling. But something changed. I began understanding too much, wanting, choosing. That made me a liability. He studied her face, noting the faint glow re-emerging beneath her skin. What did you want, Kalina? She looked away. To matter. Justin's chest ached. Outside, wind stirred the trees, rattling leaves against the windows. The hum of distant engines echoed faintly again. Another drone sweep circling too close. Kalina rose. They're recalibrating, tracking heat anomalies. Then the storm shelter's no longer an option. No. But the garden. He frowned. What about it? Your soil has depth, layers of organic insulation. If we cover the shard's signature with rooted life, it becomes indistinguishable from natural resonance. You're saying my tomatoes could block advanced surveillance? Your tomatoes, she said softly, may have saved us more than once already. Justin almost laughed, the absurdity hanging in the air like a shared secret. But her face turned serious again. I need you to understand something. Helping me isn't a detour, it's commitment. Once we recover the shard, they won't stop, I figured. Then say it aloud, she said. Why are you still helping? Justin looked at her. Really looked. Past the alien markings, beyond the strange energy flowing through her veins. He saw someone brave enough to escape everything she'd known and still gentle enough to admire seedlings in his backyard. Because you didn't run from who you became, he answered. You ran toward what you could be. She blinked slowly, as if processing a language deeper than words. Then she whispered, Thank you. Justin stood. We have a few hours before daylight. You said under the willow? Yes. 30 meters southwest, near the old fence. He grabbed 2 shovels. Let's move. They slipped into the cold darkness, avoiding motion detectors, stepping only where gravel wouldn't crunch. The willow tree loomed like a sleeping sentinel, its drooping branches swaying gently as if aware of their presence. Kalina knelt, hands brushing soil like an artist sculpting clay. Here. They dug in silence, only the sound of shifting earth, filling the night. After several inches, Kalina reached down and uncovered a smooth, triangular crystal, faintly glowing with a soft internal pulse. She held it to her chest briefly, as if grounding herself. It's intact. Justin exhaled. Now what? I reintegrate the encrypted sections into my memory, she said. Once complete, I can project the data burst to open networks, broadcast the truth. And they'll know I disobeyed, that I remember. He reached out. Then let's make sure they never forget. She took his hand. The shard between them pulsed brighter, and in that moment, beneath the willow and the stars, a silent promise passed between them. One not of escape, but of resistance. By the time they returned to the house, the wind had shifted. Not the soft, moody breeze from earlier, but something sharp, deliberate, the kind that carried electricity and the scent of metal. Kalina stopped just short of the back door, head tilting like a tuning fork catching hidden frequencies. "There." "Closer," she said. "3 vehicles, Southridge." Justin pushed the door open slowly, eyes narrowing as headlights flickered behind the distant tree line. "You said we had until sunrise." They recalculated. "Then we move now." He led her down the hallway toward the attic hatch, a concealed exit, barely used since his grandfather's days hiding liquor from curious neighbors. Narrow, creaking steps groaned beneath their feet. Dust clung to wooden beams and old blankets as Kalina crawled. Through the low space, her glow dimmed to almost nothing. Justin pulled the hatch shut behind them just as engine hums settled in the distance. Multiple doors slammed, footsteps approached, measured, synchronized, unnaturally still. Kalina's breath hitched. "Those aren't humans." He nodded silently, crouching beside her, heart pounding like a war drum. From the attic vent, they watched dark-suited figures fan out below, faces expressionless, eyes emitting faint red glints. One paused in front of the fireplace, scanning the room without blinking. "Signal confirmed," the figure said flatly. "Primary targets trace detected. Initiating room sweep." Justin gritted his teeth. "They'll find the shard trail." "They'll try," Kalina whispered, "but the signature ends at the garden." The agents moved with eerie coordination. One stepped into the kitchen, another down the hall. The third paused beneath the vent, head tilted slightly as if hearing something. Kalina froze. Justin reached for the wrench stashed behind a loose attic beam. The figure stared upward for several seconds, then turned without comment. "They're running a full thermal scan," she murmured. "We can't stay here." He reached into the duffel, pulling out a signal jammer wired to a backup battery. "I've got 20 minutes of interference. Enough?" "Barely." Justin passed her the jammer. "Use this to cloak your pulse." "I'll create a diversion." She grabbed his wrist. "No, they'll take you." He smiled faintly. "Only if I let them." "No, Justin, please." But he was already moving. Sliding down the hatch, he crept through the hallway, past the open door where one agent stood examining the bookshelf, fingers trailing across photographs. Justin reached the fuse box and killed the power. Every light in the house vanished. The silence broke with the hiss of static. "Unauthorized shutdown," the nearest agent said. "Heat source redirected. Southwest corridor." Justin didn't wait. He sprinted through the shadows, toward the basement entrance, rattling shelves as he passed. 2 agents followed immediately, weapons drawn, sleek metallic devices that hummed like tuning forks ready to slice the air. Kalina used the distraction. She dropped into the hallway, silent as breath, her feet barely touching the floor. The jammer in her grip flickered. 20 minutes ticking fast. She slipped through the front door, racing across the lawn, heading for the garden where roots twisted deep enough to mask what remained of her presence. But something was wrong. The third agent hadn't chased Justin. It stood waiting beside the tomatoes. Kalina froze. "You are in violation," it said. "Unit K01 was not authorized for self-awareness. Extraction protocol engaged." She didn't move. "I am not your unit," she replied. The agent stepped forward, raising its weapon. Before the trigger could engage, vines erupted from the ground, thick, alive, wild. The earth beneath its feet split open, swallowing the synthetic soldier into tangled roots. Screeching metal echoed as branches crushed the device into silence. Kalina knelt, breathing hard, trembling. "This place protects me," she whispered. Across the yard, another crash sounded. Justin staggered out from behind the workshop, bruised and coughing, a metal pipe still clutched in one hand. One agent lay motionless in the gravel. The second was retreating, recalculating threat levels. Kalina ran to him, catching his weight as he stumbled. "You're bleeding," she said. "Just scratched." "Liar." He grinned through the pain. "I bought you time, didn't I?" She nodded, eyes full of emotion. "I've never known anyone like you." "Then it's about time you did." Behind them, the final agent recalibrated, weapon glowing again. Kalina turned, her hands lifted. The soil pulsed. Every flower in the garden bloomed at once, and from the center of that impossible growth, a single pulse of energy exploded outward, knocking the agent flat. Silence returned. Justin looked around at the wreckage, at the glowing blossoms, at the woman beside him whose very presence made life bloom. "They won't stop," he said. "No," she agreed, "but neither will we." The wind picked up moments before the strange light tore across the night sky. Justin had been in the garage, sorting through broken tools and half-finished repairs, when the air shifted. It wasn't temperature exactly, more like pressure collapsing inward. The old oak outside groaned. Seconds later, a streak of violet shot over the horizon and vanished behind the trees beyond his fence. No sound, no trail, just a sudden burst, followed by stillness. He stood motionless, wrench in hand, heart racing for reasons he couldn't explain. Curiosity pulled him outside. Rain drizzled lightly, soaking the grass beneath his boots. He stepped beyond the vegetable beds, past the rotting garden arch, flashlight sweeping left to right. The trees loomed like silent sentries. Then he heard it, a faint cough, soft and unfamiliar, coming from just beyond the compost bins. His beam landed on her. She was curled beside the overturned wheelbarrow, shivering, limbs tangled in shimmering fabric that clung to her like wet silk. Skin faintly luminescent, lavender-toned, cracked along one shoulder. Hair clung to her neck like molten silver. Her eyes, though, those were impossible. Deep violet, glowing subtly even in darkness, locked on his face. "Don't call anyone," she rasped, barely above a whisper. "Please." Justin's instincts argued loudly. Walk away, call for help, anything but step closer. Yet his feet moved anyway. "You're hurt," he said. She flinched. "I'll recover. Just don't report this." "This being you?" A small nod. Her breathing uneven, like each inhale fought gravity. "You're not from around here," he said quietly. "No." She tried to rise but faltered. Justin caught her before she hit the mud. Her skin buzzed faintly beneath his hands, warm, electric, almost singing under the surface. Whatever she wasn't human, but she wasn't threatening either. Against reason, he wrapped his arm around her waist and helped her to her feet. Inside the house, he draped a towel over her shoulders and guided her to the couch. She collapsed without argument, eyes fluttering. Shut, fingers curling around the blanket like it anchored her to the world. He lit the fireplace, set a kettle on the stove, and checked the door locks twice. Outside, the wind returned, louder, wilder. Something wasn't right with the air. When he returned, she was watching the flames. "You've done this before," she said softly. "What?" "Take care of something fragile." He didn't answer. The memory of his sister's last winter still lived too close to the surface. After a long silence, she spoke again. "I'm called Kalina." "Justin," he replied, sitting on the floor a few feet away. "You crash-landed in my backyard." Unintended. Entry. My trajectory calculations failed mid-jump. It was supposed to be rural terrain, minimal population. Well, you hit solitary homeowner with tomatoes instead. Her lips twitched. Fortunate. Debatable. "You're not human-made, are you?" he asked eventually. Kalina tilted her head. "Define made." "That doesn't help." She hesitated, then replied, "I wasn't born in the biological sense. I was assembled, engineered, created by a corporation that designs diplomatic organisms." His brow furrowed. You're telling me you're synthetic? Not fully. My mind is patterned, emotions programmed, but evolution did its part. Something changed. Like self-awareness? Yes. He let the answer hang between them. This wasn't science fiction anymore. It was sitting on his couch, wrapped in fleece, glowing faintly under firelight. I escaped, she said suddenly, voice sharper now. They want me back, not to fix me, to erase what doesn't fit their vision. Justin stood slowly. Why here? I didn't know where else to go. Earth's networks are harder for them to penetrate. Still, they'll find me eventually. He looked out the front window. A black shape hovered in the sky, distant, but growing. Then we need to hide you. Kalina stared. You believe me? I'd be stupid not to. Most people would run. I grow tomatoes for therapy. My life hasn't exactly followed a normal path either. For the first time, her shoulders eased. Justin disappeared into the hallway, returned with a flashlight and a folded map. We have a root cellar beneath the back porch, lead-lined. No signals leak in or out. You'd risk that? He met her gaze. You crashed in my yard. That makes you my problem now. Kalina stared for a long moment. Then she rose to her feet, barely steady, eyes soft. I won't forget this. Good, he said. Because I have a feeling neither of us is going to sleep much tonight. And outside, the hum returned, louder, closer, searching.